How hard can it be to write a Eurovision song? Why does this year's crop of Eurovision songs remind me of movie scores? And why are we talking about Eurovision on this channel which is about synthesizers and electronic music? Well, it's also about composition. It says so on the tin. Yes, I watched this year's Eurovision Song Contest. I'll explain why in a moment. I was struck by the arrangements of some of these songs. They are song-stroke compositional techniques which we could apply to many types of music, including, of course, electronic music and electronic music compositions. Now, when I was little, I used to watch the Eurovision Song Contest with my parents. We had a black and white TV, and it had doors in front which closed when you weren't watching it. That was to prove it was indeed a piece of furniture and not just a clever device designed to sell soap powder to housewives. So I was probably watching when Sandy Shaw won with Puppet on a String, when Lulu won with Boom Bang a Bang, when Brotherhood of Man and Bucks Fizz won. Now, at this point, I started to get a little bit, what can I say, bored or disillusioned perhaps with the Eurovision Song Contest. I tended to think the songs were perhaps a little bit twee, a little bit trite, a little bit shallow. They were, after all, I guess what we could call Europop. And probably around this time I was beginning to develop my own sense of musical preferences. Now, I didn't see Katrina and the Waves win. I had stopped watching Eurovision, so I haven't seen an entire Eurovision Song Contest since the last century. Makes me sound so old, doesn't it? I have caught the odd song and the odd performance over the years, but I haven't seen it all the way through. This year, however, the UK was hosting it on behalf of Ukraine, so I thought I'd tune in and see what's going on. And I have to say I was quite surprised by, what can I say, the quality. Can I use that word? I was quite surprised by the quality of the songs. Not only the quality, but also the arrangement. And that is what I want to talk about in particular. Now, back in the 80s, when I was writing music and writing songs with fellow musicians and songwriters, we used to discuss the Eurovision Song Contest, and we used to ask, how hard can it be to write a Eurovision song? So I'm going to answer that question now in relation to the recent crop of songs, and it's this: it is not easy. And that is because the majority of them, at any rate, are really well constructed. The songs can only have a maximum length of 3 minutes, and as they say, you only get one chance to make a first impression. So when the final goes out and these songs are played to the voting public around the world, these songs only get one chance to prove how brilliant they are. Now, I don't think that's an easy feat. My own take on what is a good song goes something like this. I'll hear a song and think, perhaps, maybe, I need to listen to it again. And for me, I need to listen to a song at least twice, quite often 3 times, 4 times or more before I think, yeah, that's a really good song. Now, that's just the way it is with me. I know some songs have an immediate appeal, and that essentially is what a Eurovision song has to do. It has to have an immediate appeal, but without being trite. As I said, not easy. But apart from that, what I really wanted to talk about were the arrangements. Many of them had similar ideas, so I put together a list of tips which I think as composers we can all benefit from. Now, I haven't analysed these songs at all. The first and only time I have heard any of these songs was in the final. I didn't listen to the rehearsals or the semi-finals, so these songs have just had one go at impressing me. Now, I know people's impressions of a song will differ enormously, otherwise we wouldn't have charts or popularity contests. But I have certainly discovered that I am no arbiter of public taste in this department. Some of the songs in the left-hand column I really thought ought to be in the right-hand column. And there was one song which made it onto the leaderboard I just thought was really annoying rather than being a good song. Anyway, let's see what tips we can pick up from the Eurovision contest songs. One thing which many songs seem to do was to have not quite an a cappella vocal, but one with minimal accompaniment or no rhythm. And this would go on for a few bars before the beat would come in and the song would get going. Now in electronic music, I think a lot of us do this anyway. I certainly do. We'll have a paddy sort of intro and then the sequencer will come in or drums will come in. Very effective. And at least one interesting song stands out which had this vocal intro, and then after the intro it went into a short instrumental before the vocals came in again. I thought that's a slightly different arrangement and very interesting. I think most of the songs had a breakdown, so that's really not new, but it was really interesting to listen to how they arranged it. In some cases, everything went apart from the vocal. In others, there was a sound bed or a much reduced rhythmic accompaniment. What was also interesting is that some of these songs went into a rap section. I think one did spoken word. Another thing which came through to me, again just on first hearing, is that many of the songs seem to have more than the traditional verse, chorus, middle eight section. Some of them seem to have more sections than that. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But this, I think, highlights another thing we can take advantage of. When you're writing a piece of music, you don't have to restrict yourself to any set form. You can have the verse and the chorus and the breakdown and the middle eight and the verse and the chorus. Whatever you like, whatever fits the song that you're writing. But you could also have section A and a section B and a section C and a section D, and you don't have to repeat yourself if you don't want to. Or you can, of course. Or you can have a section in the middle of the music which is quite different from the rest of the music. Stick a short operatic aria in the middle of a heavy metal piece. You know, I think that might work actually, if somebody hasn't already done it before. So along with this idea of change, you can also change the pace. The breakdowns, even if they are at tempo, seem to imply a change of pace. You can go from the main tempo into a half tempo. You can double the tempo. These are all interesting and useful techniques for varying the music while maintaining listeners' interest. Now, because the Eurovision songs can only be 3 minutes long, getting a good ending is often quite tricky. Many of them actually just sort of stop. They're in the throes of a chorus and it just sort of stops. But others do have what you might recognise as a slightly more ending sort of ending. Now, I think endings are always interesting, and it's not always easy to create a good one. Many songs had what we would call a 3-time tag ending, when the last line is repeated 3 times and the last note is held. We also have the famous repeat and fade. I believe Paul Anka's Diana was the first song to use that. If you want to examine the endings of slightly more modern songs, then take a look at the Beatles songs. They really did produce a variety of ending types. So they were actually my thoughts as I was watching the final of the Eurovision Song Contest. And whether these songs were able to grab you on first listen or not, the majority of them were extremely well created and put together. What I also thought were interesting were the backing tracks. Many of them had a synth pop vibe. Yes, they use synthesizers in Eurovision now. And the drums in many of the tracks were definitely electronic. So where do movies come into it? Well, in most movies you will have a range of scenes. You will have fast scenes, slow scenes, happy scenes, sad scenes. So they all need different types of cues. And these can all be radically different, both in terms of instrumentation, tempo, and the style of music. But they all need to gel and fit together as one homogeneous whole to support the movie. And some of these songs reminded me of that because they did seem to chop and change. Now, this was on first hearing. If you hear a song a few times, then the changes may not be so apparent. But this is just my impression of some of the songs. They changed quite dramatically, I think, which reminded me of music cues in a movie. But they still maintained the coherence and were still part of the same song. Specific examples would be where a song went into a rap section or a spoken word section. So just as a movie can contain lots of different types of music, but which nevertheless still fit together to form a whole, so a composition can work in the same way. It's about being able to use variety within a single construct. That sounds a bit airy-fairy, doesn't it? But I hope you know what I mean. Now, if you want to do your own Eurovision song analysis, I think you can find all the songs on the Eurovision channel. I shall link to that in the description. There's probably a playlist out there as well. Now, there were 26 songs in the final at 3 minutes each, so you're looking at around an hour and a half if you want to listen to all of them. I will also link in the description a video which has around 20 to 30 second extracts from the songs. I don't think you get the full impact from these, but if you are short of time and are just curious, then you might want to watch that. So for me, the main takeaway is when I get to a certain point in a song and I get a little bit stuck, just change direction. Go into a breakdown, remove some instruments, try a little piece of opera, do a 4-bar rap or spoken word. I love non-lyrical vocal sounds in music. These are all ideas, these are all ways of increasing your compositional expertise and inspiring you to keep composing and keep creating music. Let me know what you think of these little tips and these little ideas. Do any of them set off a little light bulb? I will certainly be trying some of them. So I hope you found this interesting, mildly entertaining perhaps. If you did, you might like to consider subscribing to the channel, ringing the bell. Thank you, so you get informed of new videos as soon as I release them. And do please click the big thumb if you did enjoy the video. And if you did enjoy this video, I think you might enjoy these videos as well. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you again very soon in the next one.